Well, the unemployment rate in the United States is at record lows, and many job openings are not being filled because employers can't find qualified employees. Our discussion today is about how we prepare present and future generations for careers in a rapidly changing economy. It starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, good morning. There is an ongoing discussion today about how our educational systems can best prepare young people for a future career. Do they all need a 4-year college degree, or should some be focusing more on specific career training? Our guest this morning is well qualified to talk with us about that subject. He is Robert Esslinger, and he's the interim dean of the College of Technology and Occupational Sciences at Northern Michigan University. Bob, welcome to the Ryan Report.
Thanks, Don.
Nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
I understand you kind of grew up in Detroit, but you somehow found your way to Northern as a student early on.
I did actually. I tell you, it's been so long ago, I can't remember how that happened, but I was a first generation student, okay. And I was looking for a place within Michigan. I was interested in ROTC.
Okay.
And somehow or another, I found my way to a Northern orientation down in the Detroit area, and came up here and fell in love with it. And after my career in the military, I came back.
You also got a master's degree from the Naval Postgraduate School. What would that be? Is that?
Well, it's not typical for Army officers.
Okay.
I was a career Army officer. Naval Postgraduate School is it's open to any of the services, and I was lucky enough to be chosen for a special program called Foreign Area Officer, and it put me on a track that sent me to NPS for a master's degree.
And you did serve in the Army for 20 years?
I did. I was active military for a little over 20 years.
Okay.
Retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Okay. I think I probably first became familiar with you when you were with Michigan Works. And
right.
Was that your first job after the military?
No. I ran several nonprofits when I moved back. I moved back here in 1998,
okay.
97, 98, and I had a couple of different jobs as director of nonprofits. I ran the UP Builders Association for almost 5 years.
I think I do remember.
I was an economic
right.
developer
right.
in Munising. And then I was the executive director of business services for the Michigan Works, the job force.
So you were appointed interim dean of the College of Occupational, I'm going to get it right, Technology and Occupational Sciences.
Right.
And for a lot of people, I guess that was Jacobetti. Is that right? That was the perception.
Yeah, it's not all of Jacobetti, but
No.
but our programs, with the exception of the electric line tech, which is out at Sawyer, the rest of our programs are at the Jacobetti complex.
So what is the role that college plays, and why was it organized a couple of years ago?
Well, I think it goes back to President Erickson and his emphasis and importance on CTE and the programming that we do. He said several times publicly that he believes that that's really kind of core to the mission of the university. And if you look at our core values, especially community and inclusion, you know, that's one of the things that fits well in what we do regionally. We provide that community college mission. Now, we're not all of the 2-year programs or certificate programs on campus. There's others. There's some in the College of Business. There's some in clinical sciences, and but our programs are predominantly fall into that category. We only have 2 baccalaureate degrees, and then we have 6 associate degrees, and then we have 10 2-year or less certificates.
Okay, you actually joined Northern staff as an assistant to the president with special responsibilities. What was that assignment?
Well, I actually joined Northern staff initially as the director of continuing education and workforce development.
Okay.
And that quickly brought in as well special assistant to the president for community and economic development. And that was President Haynes at the time. And then when President Erickson came in, I was involved in Invented NMU and a few other things, as well as the head of continuing ed. and I was promoted to Associate Vice President for Innovation, Economic Development, and Community Engagement.
And for those who aren't familiar, I know you were one of the co-founders of Invent at NMU. Tell us about that program.
Well, Invent at NMU was really Dave Olala, who's a local entrepreneur, was literally brought to me by Fred Joyle, who was past provost at the university. And Fred said, I think this guy's got a great idea, and I think it might have application at the university. So I met with Dave, and I ultimately approached our provost, who at the time was Paul Lang, and convinced him to fund at least the idea of how do we make that compatible with the university, that being Dave's original idea. And over about a year and a half, we were able to do that. It was kind of on hold as the transition took place between presidents. And as soon as President Erickson walked in and he learned about it, he said, I don't know why we don't do that. And we were put on a very fast track to make that happen. And we had done some things through some of the other vice presidents, like the bank, acquire the bank building and some other things that lent themselves really well to that. That program really helps people with ideas who really aren't going to quit their day job. It's really to relieve the entrepreneurial burden of folks so that they can take an idea and they can literally get it to market. And it utilizes students in roles through that whole process. And it's really fantastic.
And it kind of plays a dual role in the sense that it helps entrepreneurs, but also gives students some real practical
Oh, absolutely.
experience.
Well, the students have been associated with that program have all found jobs, and they all have come back and said that having been associated with the program had something to do with either the first young man who was the project manager was actually a construction management student.
Okay.
And he said that he got more interest in that line of his resume than anything else. And it showed employers that beyond the construction business, you can take that project management skill and really apply it much more broadly. And it was good. It was good for him.
We have to take a break. We'll talk more about what's happening in education in just a couple of minutes.
Thanks,
Back
Tom.
with more on the Ryan Report 2 minutes from now. Our guest this morning is Bob Esslinger from Northern Michigan University, talking about changes in education. When I was in high school, we used to have classes like wood shop, metal shop, machine shop, and those classes kind of went away. They were kind of mandated to go away by the state. And then at some point, people started to realize, hey, we need these, not those specific classes.
Right.
But not everybody needs a 4-year degree, right?
No, and that's becoming more and more apparent. And even when you look at the statistics, the economic development statistics, there's plenty of studies out there that show that if you can raise the percentage of people who have post-secondary education, not all 4-year degrees, but post-secondary education, then you can raise everybody's individual wealth. And it's really important to go beyond K-12, but it's not for everybody. Everybody does not need a 4-year degree.
We don't have to have more necessarily lawyers or teachers or those 4-year degree subjects, but we do need plumbers and
we definitely do, and the thing about it is everybody may not need a 4-year degree today, but all of the literature that you read, they're going to need a 4-year degree sometime. So it's important for them to get some kind of post-secondary now, and then lifelong learning is more and more important. So they may not, even if they're a plumber, they may not need that 4-year degree today or tomorrow or the next day, but they'll need to go back to school. Not necessarily to add to that degree, but to go back to school. And that's really, when we get in later and we talk about the Marshall Plan and some of those other things, that's some of the stuff that's really important. And Northern's been really, I think, leading the way in some of those things and aligning what we're doing with our certificates, our 1 semester, our 1 year, our 2-year certificates, so that when you do find that you need to come back, you don't lose any time, you don't lose any money, you don't lose any classes, and that just ladders right to the next level of certification, of credential.
You mentioned Marshall Plan. First of all, I know the governor has been very complimentary toward Northern for the things they're doing in this area, but he has come up with what's called a Marshall Plan, and
Right.
the name, Many people don't even remember what the Marshall Plan was,
Yeah,
of
I
course. But tell us what this plan is.
Well, it's really to increase the talent pipeline, and it's really to bridge education and business. I mean, that's my interpretation of it. I could read you the paragraph that he talks about, but my interpretation is really to do several things. One is to, obviously, we have, in the state of Michigan, in the 5 buckets, if you will, of in-demand jobs that this plan references, there's 881,000 openings between now and 2024.
Right.
And that's IT, how to get that right, IT, manufacturing, healthcare, professional trades, and other business.
Okay.
Today, or I shouldn't say today, but in other professional trades, it's 57,000 openings between now and 2024.
Will this plan provide some new opportunities for the college and for students?
Well, I think so. The legislation changed what we thought was going to happen, and we haven't seen all of the details yet. But one of the things it's going to do, number one, is Northern's really kind of looking to lead on this thing, and we're positioned, I think, really well to do that. And Steve Vandenhoven, Vice President for Extended Learning, is looking to be that lead for at least the Central UP. And as you mentioned, we're well positioned to do that, not only because of what we've done with the state and what we continue to do with the state, but I think also because of all the outreach that we've done in the Central UP in terms of articulation, upping the number of concurrent enrollments that we have, the middle college, and some of those things that we've done that lend themselves really well to this idea and to the plan. So it's
I know
for
it's
the
not
college, one of the things it'll do is, one, I think it'll bring more students. I mean, when you look at the middle college and what's happened with those graduates, they've come. You know, they're at the university, or at least a lot of them.
And you know, you spoke of the partnership with the universities and employers. I was on the workforce board 20 years ago when I think the transition started from just training people for jobs to training people for jobs where there were employers looking for work.
Right.
And this is really where we're going now, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's really designed, that's the other aspect of the Marshall Plan, it's really designed to fill those gaps that are out there. There's a reason why there's 881,000 jobs that are coming open. Some of them are unfilled today. So this is really intended to, through curriculum, stackable credentials, competency-based education, equipment upgrades, and career navigators, adding more counselors back into the school.
Okay.
It's designed to fill those gaps.
Okay. We have to take one more break.
Sure.
I'll be back with more with Bob after we take this break. Again, our guest this morning is Bob Esslinger. Bob is the interim dean of the College of Technology and Occupational Sciences. Let's bring it right down to students. First of all, it's important, isn't it, for kids, even at the junior high level, to start thinking about where they might want to go?
Yeah, it really is. It's important for kids and for their parents
Right.
to start thinking about that. And probably the best way to start that conversation is to get out and explore. You know, there's opportunities. We have continuing education workforce development puts on the summer camps. And the whole purpose of these summer camps was not to just keep kids busy. It was to introduce kids to some of the things that the CTE programs do at an earlier age. And it was very purposeful. So we have coming up in July 10th through the 12th and July 24th through the 26th, we've got camps: cosmetology, bike repair, culinary, welding, beginning welding, advanced welding, industrial maintenance, building design, construction management, CSI, small engine repair, and exploring forestry. Okay. And it's really to expose kids to some of those things, because once, you know, in the late 70s, we changed the labor laws. And so as a 16-year-old, I mean, I was on a construction site. My dad was in construction.
I was a radio announcer.
Yeah, I mean, you could go on a construction site in those days. You could swing a hammer, you know, you could clean up afterwards, whatever. You can't do that today. You can't do that till you're 18. So you really need to get out early and
Well, on that
explore.
list you read of some of the occupations,
Yeah.
you know, we're not just building trades are important and a major need, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're talking about everything from cosmetology to construction management to
Yeah.
hospitality industry. There are just many, many jobs
Yep.
that students can be looking at.
Absolutely. We have 9 major programs from automotive, aviation, HVAC. HVAC is incredible opportunities in HVAC these days. And we don't have a lot of student interest. And that's one of those areas that in 5 years, you're going to be hard pressed to get somebody to come over and repair your heating system. I mean, it's really important for students to, every opportunity they get, to take that factory tour, you know, to hear what the counselors have to say. And I'm really happy about the Marshall Plan and the Career Navigator aspect, adding those counselors back into the high schools, because it's really tough for us to sometimes to get the message down to the students. Some of the students that we have in the 9 programs that we've got, you know, they're not the ones that are interested in chemistry and biology necessarily. They may not even think they're going to go to university.
Right.
And so it's really important for us to get down to the, you know, if you will, to the resolution of where they're at, so that they can get the message, so they receive the message, and they know these jobs pay well. It's good living.
I want to make sure we talk about the middle college program.
Okay.
Because this provides some real opportunities for students, doesn't
It does.
it? How does it work?
Well, it's a unique high school college learning experience, and what it is, it's basically 5 years of high school. That at the 11th year, you have to make a decision by the 11th year, and starting in the 11th year, the second part of the 11th year, you start taking those introductory college level courses, so that by the time you're done with the 5th year, the possibility is you can get an associate's degree, and it doesn't cost the family or the student anything. So you can leave high school and you could potentially have an associate's degree right out of high school. You can either come to university, 2 years, you've got a bachelor's degree, or you can go right to work. And and we've had one student who's done that. Other students have gotten significant credits towards that. We have six students in the first cohort who I believe got welding certificates.
Okay.
So I mean, it's really beneficial to both the students and their parents, because you're getting a big leap on college, and I mean, you're saving a lot of money.
You're not paying anything.
You're not paying any. The students and the family don't pay anything. It's the schools it's a deal worked out with the schools and the university, and so that it's free to the students and the parents.
And is this just available in Marquette and Alger now, or?
Yeah. Well, it's the. I actually have a list of the schools. Bear with me here a second.
I know it's not just broadly open to everyone.
It's not. It's
has to
not
be.
broadly open. Yeah, it's Gwinn area, Ishpeming, Marquette, Munising, Negaunee, Nice, North Star, Public Academy, Republic, Michigami, and Superior Central.
Okay.
Right now with Northern. Now there are a number of middle colleges throughout the state of Michigan, but
Right.
for us at Northern, it's those schools.
We're just about out of time. What's the main message you would want to give to people as far as being prepared for the future and training for jobs?
Well, I think it's as you mentioned earlier, it's to start thinking about it early. You know, and we know students change their mind in college about 4 times, but it's to think about it, to explore as much as you can, to get out there and you know, go visit a company, you know, go talk to somebody in an industry, and don't forget CTE. I mean, these programs are really they're good paying jobs. They're not the jobs that they were, you know, 10 years ago. You go into a factory today, you go into systems control. It's not your typical manufacturing.
We've barely skimmed the surface,
We
but our
have.
time is up.
All right,
Thanks for
sir.
coming in, Bob.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Don.
it very much. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
I'll be back with some other thoughts for you in just a couple of minutes. Well, it's time for a few more thoughts under the heading, Our Changing World. I was trying to think back to my youth, which, granted, was a long time ago, to try to recall if we had anything like the tweet we hear so much about today. I was going to suggest writing on the sidewalk with chalk, but it's really not even close. I guess the message today isn't that we have the ability to tweet, but what is it doing to human discourse? You know, it's always been true. If you say something, you can't take it back. If you say something in anger that's hurtful or spiteful, once it's out there, you can't rewind and pretend it never happened. If you realize it was a mistake or have second thoughts, you can apologize and say you're sorry, but it's still there. If it's part of a personal conversation, it's just between you and the person to whom you've addressed the remark. However, if you say it publicly and it's picked up by the media, it's there for everyone to see and pretty much will be forever. For most people, having their thoughts go public usually wasn't a problem because the media isn't following everyone around recording everything they say. But that all changed once social media arrived on the scene. Now so many people are tweeting, posting on Facebook, or using some form of social media to share their thoughts on almost everything. That's okay, it's a free country, but sometimes it just seems to get a little out of hand. Many tweets and posts are positive, happy messages, but many are not. Many are critical, often uninformed, and sometimes they can even get very personal, even though the one they're making the tweet about doesn't even know the person they're commenting about. What I'm saying is that we need to be careful about the thoughts we're willing to share with the world, because that's what we're doing when we post on any social media. We're making a statement, and with retweeting and sharing, it can be out there for the whole world to see. Now, there are hundreds of examples of why this isn't a good idea, but I'll give you just one. Roseanne Barr returned to television last season with a rebirth of her former TV show. It did well enough that ABC renewed it for next season. Then she tweeted about a former Obama appointee, and now she's gone. The network fired her. The show is coming back, but she won't be in it. The lesson we learned from Roseanne, and there are countless other examples, is what I said at the beginning of this discussion. Once you say something, you can't take it back. Once it's out there, you can't rewind or turn back the clock. It's always there. There's an old expression, look before you leap. The modern version might be, think before you tweet or share your thoughts on social media. I'll be back in a minute. Well, our time is up for another Sunday. Once again, I want to remind you, if you missed the show or want to see it again sometime, it is available at uppermichigansource.com. Today's show will be available starting at about noon tomorrow. You can also see live streaming of the show, which means if you're not at home and want to watch it, you can watch it at uppermichigansource.com. Thanks to Bob Esslinger for coming in this morning. We've only scratched the surface on important issues about education, and thank you for being here. Hope to see you again next Sunday morning.